Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of New Bern. My name is Cathy Corr, and I'm honored to be your service leader this morning. I want to thank you for coming together this morning to join one another in a time of reflection and worship, even though it feels strange to be separated from one another, and stranger still to be speaking to a virtually empty room. But we shall prevail and work to make this new temporary format as effective as possible, while trying to stay close to the familiar routine that we've come to expect. The uufnb is a shared ministry with our minister, the Reverend Charlie Davis, leading our services the second and third Sundays. On other Sundays, our services are lay-led and reflect the diverse gifts of the congregation. If you are viewing this stream today as a guest or have recently joined us, we hope that you will return more than once so that you can experience the wide range of messages and insights our speakers offer. As we begin service this morning, I would like to read for you a very timely poem entitled Pandemic. It was written by Lynn Unger, a clearly talented writer and a UU minister. Pandemic. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You can hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has become clear. Do not reach out with your hands. Reach out with your heart. Reach out with your words. Reach out with all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. I hope the words of this poem allow you to feel at peace and the connection we have with each other as you listen and reflect. That piece, so beautifully played by Judy Harrison, is entitled Rondo Espressivo by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, the son of J.S. Bach. I would invite Mike now to join me as we light our chalice. The theme this month is wisdom. And in keeping with that idea, we light this chalice to help us move from untruth to truth, to help us move from ignorance to wisdom, from animosity to love, from bondage to freedom. We rededicate ourselves before this light to affirm and practice truth, wisdom, love, and freedom today and in the days to come. As we attempt to join in song today, Judy has a few words to start us off.
What has impressed me about uufnb worship since I joined in 2008 has been how readily and heartily everyone has joined in the singing. So today I'm asking you, will you sing with us? Will you make sure that we don't break that long tradition of people through the ages who, like we, gather in community, who may struggle with issues of faith and cry out, sing out, united together. Though we can't be physically together today, if you listen with some imagination, you will hear the choir, whom I am missing terribly. Many of them with us since 2009. They all will be singing out loud today. So let's give them a big thank you for their dedicated and delightful performance. Beth and Jan, Beth Ann and Rebecca, Dell and Gail, Carol, Jane and Mary, Terry and Ann, Fred and Mike S., Michael and Anthony, Ralph and Duncan, Jake and Tom, and on leave, Carolyn, Deborah, Lorelei, Leslie, Christina, Stan, Mel, George, Patty, and Ed. At the mics today are Cathy, Mike C., Jerry, and Trish. Singing opens the heart. Singing opens the heart. We all need that to get through this time together. Now, let us sing. This song, Now Let Us Sing, we're going to start, come on singers, with the lower part. And you can just keep singing this lower part throughout the song. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Now let us sing, sing, sing. Lift up your voice. Be not afraid. That's the part. Be not afraid. Be not afraid to sing. It will sound like your voice is very big in your house or your condo if you're the only one singing. So you have to have a lot of self-love to sing by yourself, but you can do it. Sing to the power of the faith within. The next verse will be love.
Hope.
Hope. Oh, the next verse will be sing to the power of the hope within, then love within, then joy within. And some of us will sing a higher part occasionally, not the first verse, but we'll try that on the second verse. But everybody else, just stick with that lower part. You'll like it a lot, but just try it. Don't be self-critical. Just jump in there and sing. Okay, here we go. Oh, I don't have enough music. Okay, here we go.
Let us sing, 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 sing. Now let us sing, 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 sing. Lift up your voice, be not afraid.
pretty good. I know that storytelling always makes me feel pretty good. So today I have a story that I'm going to share. And I like stories because they can transport you anywhere, anytime, any place. So a story today is just the ticket for a diversion that I think we need for all of this hunkering down. Now this story is called Anansi and the Pot of Wisdom. How appropriate, right? And this story is one of the Ashanti people as retold by Jessica York. The Ashanti are a people that live in central Ghana in the rainforests of West Africa, about 150 miles from the coast. Ghana is a fairly new nation, barely 60 years old, and it has previously been called the Gold Coast. So now that kind of gives you a setting for this story. Anansi is a trickster from the folk tales of the Ashanti of the West Africa. He takes the shape of a spider who goes to the sky god to buy stories to share with the world. Anansi, the spider, loves to spin a tale. He can regale you for hours with stories full of wonder, stories full of fun, and stories full of facts too. Because he is so nosy, Anansi knows almost everything about almost everybody. Almost. But Anansi wants to know everything. So one day, he goes to the house of the sun god. "Oh, mighty sun god, you see everything and everyone. Won't you share your great wisdom with me? I'll use it wisely to spin tales of wonder and fun for everyone." The sun god ponders a moment and says, "Anansi, I will put all the wisdom in the world here in this clay pot. You must share this wisdom with everyone." And Anansi promises to do so. Anansi takes the pot home. He looks deep into the clay pot, and sure enough, he sees sights that he has never seen before. He hears sounds he did not know existed. "Oh, this is too good to give away. I'll keep this great wisdom for myself," thinks Anansi. "But I must hide it," he says, and he looks around for a good hiding place. Anansi decides to climb to the top of the tallest tree. There he will tie up the clay pot and the leafy branches will hide it. He starts climbing the tree, holding the pot in front of him. The climbing is hard. Have you ever climbed a tree while holding a pot? Oh, Anansi wishes he had 9 legs. Spider. His youngest daughter is outside and sees what a hard time Anansi is having. "Father, it would be easier if you tied that pot to your back. Then all your limbs would be free for climbing." Do you think Anansi is happy to have good advice from his daughter? Think again. She's right. That would be easier. Why is it that some young pup thinks of this when I, who possess all the wisdom of the world, did not? Anansi got so angry that he threw the pot to the ground. Oh, all the wisdom of the world comes flowing out of the pot. Some falls here and some falls there. No one gets all the wisdom, but everyone gets some wisdom. This is why even today, wisdom is everywhere. If you listen to the stories spun from storytellers around the world, you'll hear it. And then I found this little shard of wisdom that was gathered and shared by Reverend Kathleen McTeague. And she writes, "If it's wisdom we're after, we must remember that the truest wisdom comes laced through with compassion. As we come to know how alike we are, each of us doing our best to find the path ahead and to keep on walking with our fragile, broken hearts, and all of us in deep need of each other's kindness." We turn with appreciation now to hear the soloist Jerry Mackle sing "When We Gather Together."
How can I tie that to wisdom? When we gather together, it makes my heart sing. What I know that we come here to share, all the joys that this sorrows that this life can bring. What a blessing they're people who care. Let there always be love from within and above. Let it shine round our circle so bright. Let love guide and sustain us as we gather with love. May we shelter in its radiant light. When we're working together, our hearts hold way high to the needy, the poor and oppressed. Every life that we touch becomes one with our own, and our spirits with grace are blessed. Let there always be love from within and above. Let it shine round our circle so bright. Let love guide and sustain us as we gather in love. May we shelter in its radiant light.
Thank you, Jerry. Let us now share life's joys and sorrows, milestones or concerns. As we continue to stream services, we will make every effort to keep things as close to normal as possible. In that effort, the UU Update, which is released on Thursdays, will invite you to send in your joys and sorrows prior to the service. A stone will be dropped into the water and your intentions read as part of the service. Today is a way to add a bit of variety in the hopes that you do not tire of hearing my voice in this service. I have asked Mike Corr to read the joys and sorrows.
I have two, and then I'll have Trish Hardy come up and she can share hers. These two stones that I just put in the water are really in Anthony Etchley's name, a joy and a concern. There's a concern that Anthony continues his search for employment. The recent response to the coronavirus has resulted in many of his potential opportunities being canceled. He, however, would like to let the congregation know that he has many skills and is available for hire as you may have a need. Look to the UU Update for more information on what services Anthony can provide, from handyman to electrical work, and how to reach him. And there's also a joy connected to this. Anthony has already been contacted by at least one member of our UU family that has hired him for something special. Please keep him in your thoughts and as you consider those nagging spring projects. Trish?
Hi, I'm Trish Hardy. I'm your treasurer, and I will be coming in every week to pick up your checks that you're sending in the mail. Thank you very much for those who've sent them, and I'll be sending out a letter today to give you more information. Times they are changing. Our lives are changing. The world is changing, and mine is too. I live a very quiet life, which I love, having spent most of my life serving others. I'm going to become a full-time grandmother. My grandson is moving in with me full-time on Tuesday. He's a first grader and he's a high-functioning autistic. I will be homeschooling, so I will need help from anybody who's had any experience teaching a first grader. I'd like to get him through to second grade. I don't believe the schools won't go back until the fall, hopefully. So it's going to be experience for me. So I would appreciate all those teachers out there. What do you do with a first grader? I need to know when I give him back to his mom at the end of the year, I want him to be ready for second grade. Thank you.
This last stone is for all of those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken and on your heart. A quick reading before meditation. Quiet your mind and savor this moment. Take a look around. See its beauty. Instead of worrying about what's next, see the immense value that's already yours in what's now. Savor the time you're in and the place where you are. Open your eyes to now, your heart to purpose, and experience in rich detail the miracle that is your life. There's nothing to be gained by racing furiously away from this moment in search of more. Instead, put your energy into accepting all that is, and you'll find that it's more than enough. With this thought and the joys and concerns that we have been privileged to share, allow yourself this moment of reflection. Thank you, Judy. The music we just enjoyed was Prelude in E minor by Johann Sebastian Bach. As the few of us here today stand in an empty room, we are warmed by the notion that our uufnb family has gathered to send out thoughts, love, and concern for one another. Although we may be warmed by those thoughts, our dear uufnb Fellowship Hall must rely on electricity for its warmth and light. Please remember that there are still bills to be paid and attention to be given to our building to maintain it. We also have community needs that call to our generous hearts to respond. Take a moment to consider your pledge or donation this week. If you would like to mail in your contribution, it sounds like information is going to be forthcoming, but the address here is 308 Meadows Street, 28560. Thank you for those gifts, and as always, we will strive to use them wisely. Now, Lorraine Gardner has kindly prepared a presentation for us today. Upon learning that she had been a social worker, I thought about Lorraine's topic today entitled Witnessing Wisdom. We are all uniquely shaped by our own experiences in life, and I wondered how her experiences might provide us an opportunity to share a unique perspective. I admire those like Lorraine, who not only see the darkest sides of being human, anger, violence, abuse, despair, self-destruction, but those people are willing to step into that darkness to bring hope. As I thought about Lorraine and others like her and what they do and the challenges that they faced, I found this reading that really touched on a lot of how I was feeling, and it's called In the Midst of a World by Rebecca Parker. In the midst of a world marked by tragedy and beauty, there must be those who bear witness against unnecessary destruction, including self-destruction. and who with faith rise and lead with grace and power. There must be those who speak honestly and do not avoid seeing what must be seen, and to not avoid what must be seen of sorrow, outrage, tenderness, and wonder. There must be those whose exuberance rises with lovely energy and speaks of earth's joys. There must be those who are restless for respectful and loving companionship among human beings, those whose presence invites people to be themselves without fear, those who gather with remembrance and compassion, drawing water from old wells and walking the simple path of love thy neighbor. There must be those who seek to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly, seeking wisdom and truth. To me, that just so speaks of what those people do. Lorraine's accomplishments are many, so I'll highlight just a few as I introduce her. She received her Master's of Social Work in 1992, just about the time her daughter Carolyn was entering first grade. Over the 25 years in the field, Lorraine was fortunate to experience the wide spectrum of this profession. She spent 2 years in upstate New York in a drug alcohol rehab facility. Now, to be clear, she was staff, not a client. She also served as a psychotherapist in a pastoral counseling center, where she was the first non-minister ever hired. She gained experience as an employee assistance counselor, doing short-term solution-focused therapy. She was a school social worker, providing individual and group counseling to kids, and an adolescent specialist, practicing family preservation in Sutton, England. She's also had experience as a medical on-call social worker, offering crisis intervention. In addition, Lorraine has had the opportunity to teach undergrad Bachelor of Social Work students at Arizona State University in Tucson. The decision to retire a bit early and move to Bridgeton with her husband Randy came in part because at her last job as a supervisor of in-home visitors, she learned that she was happier doing direct work with clients rather than as a supervisor. She joins us now with wisdom from the trenches. Please welcome Lorraine Gardner.
Thank you so much, Cathy. Wow, I sound so old. I've had so many jobs. But if you hate your job, there's always other jobs, or at least we hope there are other jobs. Oh wait, that's advice. And I'm here to talk about wisdom. And so the question is advice the same as wisdom? As a social worker, I thought that I was going to be giving people advice, but what I learned was quite different over the years. I'm calling this talk Witnessing Wisdom because I hope I can share with you some of the stories that have informed me as I grew in my career. Alexa, who said the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing? For those of you that don't have an advice, rest assured Alexa, she doesn't know the answer. We'll wait for her to finish saying, I'm not sure, to those of you at home. Don't feel bad because the answer is Socrates, and maybe you didn't know either. So where does wisdom come from? Is it the same as expertise? I think that maybe it's not, but now we're faced with looking for expertise to help us in this time. When I agreed to do this talk, I didn't think Charlie would be here. I didn't think I would be here remotely broadcasting. None of us knew what was coming. And that's certainly true for being an expert in any area. We might not know what is coming. When I was starting graduate school, one of my professors did a research project to compare social work grad students with the most opposite profession she could imagine. Any guesses what profession she would have picked?
Stockbrokers?
Stockbrokers, good guess. It was engineers. So, of course, Randy engineering, opposites attract. Those of you out there that have the artistic social work personality might find that you're attracted to what you don't have within yourself, as I have been. What she learned was that our childhoods had similar experiences, but social workers did have a difference. We had earlier trauma, earlier disruption, earlier chaos. Engineers were more formed as children, as young people, when their families had problems. Whether it was death of a parent, alcoholism, homelessness, child abuse. You can just imagine if you're 2 or 3 and that happens, how it shapes your personality versus if you're 17 or 15, how your personality is already formed. So social workers, she proposed, liked sort of helping people because we were dependent on people for our survival, whereas the engineers wanted things in order. My poor husband likes his laundry folded, and he wishes my laundry would be folded. But that's not going to happen. It's not in my personality. So here's my first story. A well-dressed woman walked into my office for the first time. We made small talk, which is common, and then I said the classic line, "What brings you here today?" She presented me with her left hand, where there was a prominent diamond ring. "Are you engaged?" I properly said. "Yes," she said, and then she told me all about her fiancé and how lovely he was and how she loved him. "But that's the problem," she said. I was quizzical. "How old did you say you were again?" I said to her. She said, 34. "What does it have to do with anything?" I was just wondering if you were old enough to know who you wanted to marry or when you wanted to marry. She got mad. "Well, of course I'm old enough." I don't remember the rest of the session. But she made another appointment, and when I saw her the next time, I immediately noticed that her ring was nowhere to be seen. So, because I had had good training, I waited to see if she would bring it up. She first started to flatter me with what a good therapist I was and how her sisters all wanted to come see me. Remember, I'd only seen her one time. I thanked her and I said, "Great, why? Why did your sisters think that?" She had 3 sisters. She said, "Well, because she had visited them in the between our session, and they were at a restaurant, all looking at the menus, and none of her sisters could decide what to have for dinner." And she was like, "For God's sakes, you're all old enough to choose what you want for dinner." She thought that her sisters would maybe be mad at her, but they liked it. And they revealed to her that they all had that same problem of indecisiveness and worry and fretting. And so they had a wonderful dinner conversation. When she got home, she called her fiancé and said, "I want to be your girlfriend again. Will you ask me in the future?" He said, "Sure, no problem." "Do you want another appointment?" I said. "No, that was it." So did I help her? Did I help her sisters? I like to think that I was there and I was witnessing her journey of figuring out what to do. Curiosity about what happens has been shown to be a quality that good therapists need to have. If you don't care what happens at the party with the uncle who always drinks too much and the father you haven't spoken to, if you don't have an interest in what's going to happen to your client, you're not likely to make a very interested therapist, and they're going to pick up on that. So the fact that I like mystery novels, soap operas, television shows with a continuing theme. How many of you remember we had to wait all summer to find out who killed JR? Most of you remember Dallas. But if you hated Dallas, trust me, you're not going to make a very happy counselor either. I have always felt that privilege to be with people when they're in pain. And as Cathy said, is it because the chaos of my childhood taught me to just carry on? Yes. And in fact, many helpers have sort of people to call for advice when something that is normal that happens isn't normal to them, like seeing blood on your hand. If you grew up where there were fights and bleeding and people got hurt and bandaged themselves and there weren't a lot of doctors, then when you see blood and now you're 50, you might just think, oh, it's not a problem, I'll wrap a towel around it and keep finishing the dishes. So maybe you call a friend and say, hey, I see blood, what should I do? And your friend advises you, don't treat it normally, put your hand up, go get it examined. So I was good at following those stories because I learned that in my childhood. In some situations like now, we need more advice. And yet what we hear when we hear advice, or maybe what we feel, is we feel some resistance. At least I do. Look at your story. Let's see, what was that guy's name? Anansi, who didn't want to take his daughter's advice. That is normal. We, in general, as adults, like our own ideas best. So if you give advice, which we all do, sometimes we have to risk that it won't be taken. In fact, it's almost never taken. And that's the challenge for us that want to be helpful. Here's another story. Before I started, I should say that sometimes people will ask you or me directly, what should I do? And that is one of the hardest things to resist. Oh, great, you think I know, thank you. It's so hard to distance yourself from having that solution. But of course, if you're paying someone for advice or you're paying someone for their expertise, you better hope that they have training and they don't think that they have the answer for you, but that they're there to guide you. And this is what happened to my couple that came for marriage counseling. There was a problem. They'd been married 25 years, and the wife had discovered that her husband was having an affair. Both of them were miserable. They did not want to lose their marriage. They loved each other, but this was a crisis. I said, well, is the affair over? And the husband said, no. And the wife said, no. But I want it to be. So we decided to call it deciding therapy, because couples therapy implies two. We even brought in a chair, a little Gestalt move. You remember those days when you did role playing? There was the empty chair, signaling that there was a third person here. For several weeks, we worked on their love, how they met, what happened in their marriage, and how this had happened. So down the road, they came in as usual, sat down for their appointment, and the wife said, I've decided. He has to choose me or her. Tell him, I said. She did. He said to me, can I speak to you alone? Tell her, I said. She said, no problem, I'll wait in the lobby. Down she went down the stairs. He looked right at me and he said the dreaded question, what should I do? But I was ready. I was not a babe in the woods. I had had training and paid lots of money for my degree and gone to lots of lectures. And I said, thank you so much for your faith in me, that I would know what to do. I'm here. I'm with you. And we sat. And he decided. He told her, I need 3 days and I'll be done with her. I said, do you want another appointment? And they said no. And I never saw them in counseling again. I did see them once in my town, and they were together several years later, but we didn't speak. So what would you have said is the question. If someone asks you, have you fallen into that trap of answering, or have you been able to resist? It's normal to answer when someone asks you directly. And in fact, when you don't answer, they might get mad. In supervision, I had a good supervisor who told me that everything that happens in the session is sort of grist for the mill, to stay with the moment and not worry too much. I had lots of training about using myself. Of course, I had therapy, I had my own counseling, so that I worked through some of my own issues, so I wasn't putting them on the people I was serving. And so when things happened in a session, I could trust, usually, that my sort of spontaneous idea was going to be helpful. And for example, you've all had people come to you and say, hey, I'm hungry. Do you fall for it? Do you say, oh yeah, here, have an apple? No, I don't want an apple. Oh, how about a banana? No, I don't want a banana. If you're smart, do you stop making suggestions? Maybe. Seems like you're hungry. I don't know what you're going to pick, but I'm sure you'll find something. That's how you sort of let go of being in charge. So my last story is sort of to illustrate that even when people don't know that they have the answer, they have it. And in counseling, we learned from the research that most people who ever go to counseling, the mean is 1 session. Insurance will pay for maybe 6 to 8 sessions. And that's because effective counseling, now I'm not talking about for seriously mentally ill or for emergency crisis like suicide, but I'm talking for most of us, the worried well is what we're called, who function to a degree. We can get help in a short period of time, so insurance companies don't pay beyond the 6 to 8 sessions. I've had a 1-session therapy with a client. It was a proper older woman, walked in. I say older because at the time I was younger, so she was probably my age. In fact, I think she probably really was my age. She came in for an EAP, which is that Employee Assistance Program counseling. Those of you that are employed, you might ask your employer if they have an EAP. If you're interested, you can have very short-term counseling. Sometimes people in your household can also have counseling for free. It bypasses the insurance system, and it's a service. It's also where employers can send an employee if they're worried about them, and so that's how it came to be. So this woman came in, sat down, and she said, the problem is my son. He's living with me. He's, depressed, he's on the couch, he stays up late, the list goes on and on. She was tired of caring for him. She wanted him to not be the boy. Several times I interrupted her to say, wait, how old did you say he was again? The 3rd time I couldn't remember his age, and again, this is where I trusted myself. I could not remember his age. I was not making it up. Why couldn't I remember? Judy, you're laughing. Why couldn't I remember? Because he was 43. How old did he sound?
18.
18. I asked her, why can't I remember? She got a little mad. She told me maybe I should write it down. Again, this is 1 session. I had never seen her before in my life. I said, why do you think I can't remember? And she said, well, he doesn't sound 43. I said, how old does he sound? She said, 12. We sat in silence. And then she bent over and she picked up her purse off the floor and she started to adjust her coat. And I said, are you getting ready to go? She said, yes, I'm done. Do you want another appointment? No, I know what to do. I just need to remember he's 43. And she left, and I never saw her again. So was I witnessing her wisdom that was inside her all the time, and my presence allowed her to come to some understanding of what she had to do? I like to think that. I hope he's off the couch. Buddha, well, I've modified Buddha's quote, "A fool who recognizes her own ignorance is thereby a wise woman." I alluded briefly to serious mental illness and crisis, and I do want to say that that's different again. Modern psychology and psychiatry has been fueled by pseudoscience. We remember Freud, who thought everything was a sexual fantasy about something, and that was the cause of all evil or all symptoms. Or Pavlov, who thought that all behavior was learned and rewarded or punished. Remember the bell and the saliva and the dogs, and how I actually gave M&Ms to kids on desks. First grader, yes, you can have 3 M&Ms after you wash your hands. Sure, great, no problem. Reward works for the most part. Doesn't build a lot of intrinsic training, but for first graders, it works great. So psychology and psychiatry have evolved. Some of you, and I'm out of the field now a couple of years, so there's probably even more stuff that I don't know. But I just want to say, while you're on house arrest or whatever we're calling it, sheltering in place, if you're interested in learning more, there's some wonderful self-help things you can do. This is the Bible. It's appropriate I say it in Unitarians. The Bible of Cognitive Therapy, which is worldwide the #1 treatment of talk therapy for depression and anxiety. It's by David Burns, Feeling Good. You can buy this in all kinds of forms, with notebooks, with places to write, with homework, with exercises. You can read it yourself and get benefit from it. In fact, they sent the book to people on a waiting list, and those people that got the book had less depression by the time they got to counseling than the people who didn't get the book. It works just by knowing there's a book that could help. That's the amazing thing about cognitive therapy. But you might not have heard of EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. How many of you have heard of that? No? Some people said no. This is being used in VA hospitals. It's being used around the world now for post-traumatic stress disorder. We don't know exactly why it works. Something about the hemispheres of the brain, having your eyes go back and forth. A trained therapist usually is needed to do it, but it can work amazing for trauma and sort of memory that doesn't recede into a normal place. The last thing I'll mention is tapping, or EFT. Again, Google this. It's so fun to read. You can watch videos about tapping. Have you heard about tapping, Kathy? Tapping therapy, you tap various points. I'm just giving you a little example how I do it. I do it on myself. I have my client maybe follow. You say some things. I won't give you the whole thing, but it's amazing. Also, it can be used in large groups. It's being used by many service organizations working with trauma. So I tell you these things because many of us are looking for support and advice and wisdom. And in this time that's happening right now, we're really needy for this. I miss my work sometimes, the curiosity of what's happening to people. I'm glad to be home, taking care of my mom and with Randy. And if you are needing support like this, as opposed to giving it to others, you might have to coach someone. Remember the Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus books, where he says to each couple, you may have to teach your partner what you need, and you can only do that in dialogue. So if you need someone just to listen, you may have to say, hey, I have a problem. I don't want advice. I've thought of everything. I just need to talk it out, and when I hear myself, maybe I'll think of what I want to do next. So you can coach people to help you. Right now, perhaps we can only take the advice that we're going to be okay, as we've always been, that life goes on, life is long, but none of us really know what's going to happen. Confucius is credited by saying, real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. Push your feet right down on the floor right now as you're sitting there. Go ahead and take a breath in. Maybe remind yourself, I'm not in charge of everything. The pressing your feet on the floor is an exercise. It does really work somehow in the brain too. Certainly breathing helps with anxiety. If you're feeling any of those things, there is help. We're all here remotely, FaceTime, Skype, all those ways that we have to communicate. This much I know. I have my hand sanitizer and I'm going to use it on my way home so that when I go say hi to my mom, I will at least be clean. I heard from Carolyn yesterday, for those of you that are interested, not exactly from her, but she typed a text on her phone on the island in Costa Rica that has no service. She gave her phone to someone who was leaving to go find service, who then sent the message. In part it said, hey Mom, sorry to worry you. I'm okay. Everything's fine. Can't think of where I would rather be than on a beautiful tropical island during the shitstorm. So of course I immediately texted back and then the woman who had the phone said, hi, this is Carolyn's sister from the island. She let me use her phone so I could contact people. So that's all I know. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here for all of us. The Unitarians are going to be fine. We know that. And I wish you well, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine, for your thoughtful presentation today. What amazes me is she hardly looked at those notes once, and she has pages of them, and she's turning them, but she never looked at them. Man, wish I could do that. I would like you to join us in singing our last hymn.
Okay.
It's called We Are Climbing Jacob's Ladder, so it's an old favorite.
We are climbing Jacob's ladder.
The last line is,
And the last line is, we are climbing on.
We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing.
announcements. I believe Mike has an announcement to make regarding RCS.
I have one announcement. The RCS Soup Kitchen, as many of you know, the fourth Monday of every month, UU is responsible for staffing the Soup Kitchen. And our next Monday is tomorrow. And so I wanted to just let you know that we are still in need of some help, but that they've made some changes, just in case there may be some concerns. They're experiencing what they're going through. They're calling us a shut-in. And that is just for the staff. And so for those who usually prep the food, that will still go on mostly like it always did. They're not going to be using the dining area at all for dining. And one additional step for those who are on the prep team will be, when the food is ready, we'll be putting it in containers to go, and then those containers will be given to the clients outside the facility. So that's something that we'll be interested to see. They will have a full week under their belt, so we will not be the first one. So if you are interested in helping, you can contact Fred Pittenger or myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And if you wouldn't mind joining me to extinguish the chalice. As we extinguish the chalice, we borrow courage and wisdom from one another. May it warm us and keep us until we're together again. Closing words: walk softly, speak truthfully, love gently, breathe deeply, live wisely. Shalom.
Shalom.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Peace.
Peace.